Here with Mike Johnston, former now candidate for Senate in Colorado. Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So what's behind your decision to drop out of the race?
Yeah, I think I looked at the race ahead and realized it would be expensive and a negative primary. And I think that's not who I am, and that's not what I believe. That's not the type of politics I've tried to build. And I think that I didn't want to be a leader in that kind of race. And I think I didn't want to do anything that would help risk the chance that we might lose this seat. All of my supporters got in because they wanted to win this seat and flip back the Senate. And they wanted to build faith that there was a different kind of politics that was possible. I think we couldn't do both in this kind of race. So I thought it was better for me to be not on the ballot, but still in the battle to try to win this seat.
When you say you'd have to go negative, who do you think you'd have to go negative against?
I just think this race certainly changed. When we were, several weeks ago, I think we were in a great position as the potential front runner to help win the race and do it in a positive way about what we were for. I think the former governor's entrance into the race changes that race, and now it becomes more of a race about, why not John Hickenlooper as opposed to why yes to Mike Johnston. And I think that's not the kind of race I wanted to lead. I like to believe that you build politics based on inspiring people about what's possible, not on the politics of destruction. And I just think that wasn't something that I thought I wanted to be a part of or our supporters wanted to be a part of.
Have you had a chance to talk with John Hickenlooper?
I did. I talked to him this morning before we went public with the decision.
Would you mind chatting about what you chatted about?
I mean, it was just we've been friends for a long time, so it was just a personal conversation to say, here's what I'm doing, here's why I made the decision and wanted you to know. And so I think that was, for me, an important step of the process, but I thought I owed that to him, and it was a good conversation.
As you step out of this race, what does this race now lack, do you feel?
I think for me, it is now the question about what is the overwhelming purpose of this race for those of us that care deeply about solving the climate crisis, or about taking real action on guns, or about taking action on democracy reform so democracy works again. The entire country is going to look to Colorado. This Senate seat is going to potentially change the balance of power in the U.S. Senate. And so I think we are in a moment that is bigger than us and bigger than any one person. And so that's why I thought the most important thing was to provide my energy and support to help push for that shared outcome rather than have a long, divisive, expensive primary. So I think what people are going to step back now and see is, okay, what's at stake in Colorado? What do we do to make sure we win? And how do we make sure not to do things that would damage our chances to win?
I have a feeling I know that the candidate who ends up winning the primary is going to win your vote, but what would you say that person needs to do to get your vote in this race?
I think there are a lot of great candidates in the race right now, but I think the main focus is we want someone who's going to have the courage and the conviction to lead in a time of crisis. I think this is a real time of crisis, and that is true on our democracy, that is true on our climate, that is true on healthcare, immigration, or guns. And so it's going to take someone who really is able to listen to all voices, but has the courage of their convictions to lead hard in moments where we need them to. And I think we have a good chance to deliver someone who can do that.
I imagine this has been a tough year for you. This is now 2 races that you've been out of. What's next for you?
That was the same question my 7-year-old daughter asked me when I told her this decision, and my 2 sons, and I don't know the answer to that. What I told them and what I know is, this process, the campaign, has made me believe even more deeply in the issues that were at stake and that I worked on. I think climate is an existential threat. I think that the issue of restoring and making democracy work again is a huge issue. I'll stay committed to those long term. I plan to be in Colorado for a long time, putting my shoulder to the wheel in whatever way I can make a difference, and whether that's in office or in a nonprofit or as a citizen, I don't know what the answer will be, but I'm deeply committed to stay involved in these issues, and I will.
Do you see the governor's decision to hop into this race as creating any sort of rift in the Democratic Party in Colorado?
I don't think so. I think situations change and people make different decisions, and then you have to adjust to those. And I think for me, this was what was the best decision for me. And I think there are still, among the number of people in this party, there's much more agreement than there is division. And I think when they look at the prospect of, do you want a U.S. Senate where Mitch McConnell still holds the gavel, or do you not? Do you want a U.S. Supreme Court where Ruth Bader Ginsburg's replacement will be appointed by Mitch McConnell or not? People get real clear on the stakes of this one. And for me, the stakes are just too high with those issues at stake to do anything that would put at risk our capacity to win the seat and flip back the Senate.
So you've run for governor, you've run for Senate. As you make your way around Colorado, what's the most impactful thing you took away from both campaigns?
I mean, it is a very powerful experience. It's been one of the great gifts of my life. I think that what I find is people are actually very hungry to feel connected back together again and to feel like they're a part of a country that works. I say sometimes it feels like one of those squabbles between 2 spouses who don't know how to make up. They don't know, another one wants to be the first to come back and say, I'm sorry. But I think people want to be a part of a country where it feels like we can solve big problems and we're able to make progress and move forward. And I think people don't like the way it looks or the way it feels right now. And that's why I just not did not want to be a part of that division or of that dysfunction. And I think that's where most of Coloradans are, is they know their neighbors, they know their family. They might disagree on certain political questions, but they basically want to stand shoulder to shoulder and see if they can get big things done together they couldn't get done alone. And I think that's what democracy is at its best. I think that's what it can still be, but we have to run campaigns that reflect that, and that's why this one wouldn't have been that for me.
It seems like we are so far apart as a society these days. Do you think that we're going to get back to a point where we're closer together?
I always find the most powerful ways to do this is face-to-face conversations on, on Twitter or on Facebook or even on the nightly news. It's easy to be very polarized. I think when you sit down at someone's kitchen table, or we did these things around the state we'd call family dinners, where we would put people that were 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats, 5 independents together for a conversation, and face to face over an hour or two and maybe a couple of beers, people find out they have a lot more in common than they thought, but we sometimes need the chance to allow people to stand in the middle of the room together and realize what they liked about each other and what the things were they shared in common. We don't have a lot of spaces for that, so I think one of the things we have to do is try to create more of them, because on a general human scale, people long for that kind of connection. We just got to fight to get it back.
Mike Johnston, former candidate for Senate here in Colorado, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate it.
Subscribe to the next YouTube channel and I'll buy you a beer. Am I actually buying them a beer? This could be a very poor idea. We need some terms and conditions. Offer subject to terms and conditions.